Welcome to another episode of Voices of West Windsor. And we are doing for these 3 weeks the Women's Day series. And I am so glad that our councilwoman, Andrea, is a part of our Voice of West Windsor. And thank you, Andrea, for being the benchmark and for doing what you're doing, and it's our honor and privilege to have you on board.
And thank you very much. I've been enjoying the series, and you've had a lot of great people on here, I know.
Yeah, thank you so much. What does West Windsor mean to you, and what makes it unique in your eyes?
Well, I've lived in a number of apartments and houses since I got married, and I'll let you know it was 50 years last year that I've been married. But it's the first town that I think was a real home to me as an adult. Before that, I usually lived somewhere just because I was going to school there, and then I would get a new job and I would keep moving us around every time I got a new job. We came here over 32 years ago from Wayne, New Jersey, when I
Wow.
got a job in Princeton with Church and Dwight. They had offered to move me, and we came down and we found a town that had a train station that my husband could take to go into New York City, and I could get to work. And then I stayed here even after I wound up starting my own consulting company, which I could have done from anywhere. I stayed here. My daughter was born even after my husband retired, and he didn't have to go to New York City. And then even after my daughter finished high school, which was over a decade ago, we still felt that this was the best place for us. It's unique because it still has that small town feel that I really like, even though it's got 30,000 people now and they come from all over the world and they have all these different backgrounds. And there's this exciting and changing mix of people. And they're all initially attracted like we were by the good transportation and the great schools,
Mhm.
but so many of them actually adopt it as their home and decide to make it become part of the fabric of it. So that's what's really special about the town. And I personally love learning new things and being with all different kinds of people, being with different age groups, and
Mhm.
not just staying in a place where everybody's my age or everybody's my type. And I like to be immersed in the other cultures. And I've always loved to travel. I've been all over the world, but it's not the same as having friends and working and playing with people of different types every day. You get a whole different perspective, but then you get to sleep in your own bed at night. So
Yeah.
it's actually becomes part of you and not just a place you're visiting.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's so nice. 32 years in this town. So, is there someone in particular in this town who has inspired you?
I'm strongly inspired by the Girl Scout leaders and volunteers that I've always been working with. And I always have said, if I had to be stuck on a desert island, these are the resourceful people, and I would want those people with me. I'm sorry that they might want to be there, but but if I had to depend on people to survive with and to do something resourceful, they're the
Yeah.
people. They do camping outdoors, they manage troops, plan
Yeah.
trips. They do all kinds of other volunteer work for both our and our neighboring communities, many of whom need it more than we do.
Yeah.
And whereas the National Girl Scouts USA has been losing girls across the country, West Windsor Plainsboro Girl Scouts are thriving, and we have about 1,000 members. Um, and I'd like to give a special shout out to Louisa Ho, who's been running it for a long time. She's
Hmm.
the not only on the school board, but she's
Yeah.
been the manager, service unit director, service unit manager, goes through different names
Yeah.
for a number of years. Elizabeth Chinera has been also as the current co-manager, and the whole service team and all the past leaders and managers that made this happen. And this past year, they've zigged and zagged to make Girl Scouting work during the pandemic. And as I've said to them, I think we need to have a new Girl Scout law, and people are familiar with the 10 laws, and there should be that a Girl Scout is adaptable, because I think we've really seen that for both the leaders and the girls this year.
Yeah.
I also admire the high school Girl Scouts who do their Gold Awards. People are familiar with, that's the highest
Yeah.
award in Girl Scouting, similar, I guess, to the Boy Scouts doing Eagle Scouts. I've been mentoring the girls for their awards for many years, and I've been running the committee that interviews them and approves their projects and final reports when they're done with their projects. And they've been running projects, everything from teaching STEMs to girls in some of the underserved communities, to teaching music to seniors, to constructing furniture, to robotics. And Girl Scouts as individuals in the troops did a lot during the pandemic, from making masks to food collections to providing enrichment and classes via Zoom, both for local and for underserved communities. I'm a 25-year Girl Scout volunteer, so I was thrilled that I was able to present them with one of our hometown heroes, West Windsor Hometown Heroes proclamations, as president of the council. And it was a very personally touching moment for me. And I remember saying, I'm about to cry, and Louisa says, well, but we can't hug you. so yes, I'm hoping someday that'll come back.
Yeah, I know.
But it was very, very special to me to be able to do that personally, and as the president of the council.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And secondly, I admire members of our immigrant population who have been coming to a new country, and yet they've been accomplishing so much. Many of the women I know have established themselves in important jobs or become volunteers, have started businesses. And in the case of my friend and fellow councilwoman, Sonia Gowis, has become a government leader. And not just the women, like our own mayor, Hemanta Mathe, started several businesses. I came here, I think, in the 90s, and he became the first Indian-born mayor of West Windsor. And I'll throw a shout out to Shing Hussain, who's mayor before, and he became, I believe, the first Chinese or Asian mayor. And it reminds me of the strength that my own grandparents showed, because they left their homelands, thank God, because most of their families were murdered, that stayed in the Holocaust. And they came by themselves to this country at a young age. So I see a lot of that, and I just think of how can these people, they come here and and they blend right in, and they've accomplished so much, and a stranger in a strange land, able to do that. So it impresses me.
Yeah, my daughter, she's also in Girl Scout, and I have very high regards for Girl Scout because she has learned so many things because of that. Like, right now she's in high school doing a Gold Award, so I can totally understand what you're saying. And so now about you being a councilwoman. You have been in the council for the past 1 year now, and its president as well. So, what do you view as your most significant accomplishment or accomplishments? Anything you would have done differently?
Well, I ran for council in 2019 and took office in January 2020 as a West Windsor councilwoman. During our organizational meeting, I was elected vice president of the council. And that was right before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And by mid-March, life was all pandemic all the time. And I didn't only have to worry about my own family, or my own daughter was in New York, and but about 30,000 other people. So that's that's been kind of interesting.
Yeah.
One thing I did, as I quickly became very concerned that it was very difficult for seniors and others to get groceries, and even worse for people who could not afford the delivery services, even if you could get them. And if you remember, at that time, there were a month wait for Instacart and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And even the food banks were shutting down locally. This was right end of March, after shutdowns. So we put together a task force. This is the town, with Doug from the health department and Donna from the West Windsor Senior Center. And we decided to have a food collection for West Windsor. We decided to invite Melissa Hager from Send Hugger Packing, and she was very instrumental in helping us. And I don't know if you know Sashi Skreethkemp of the Social Women's Group.
Mhm.
She put together a small group that had been looking for volunteer work. What could we do for during the pandemic that I was part of? And I said, hey, I've
Mhm.
got some work for you,
Yeah.
but we have to keep it small because of the pandemic. We can't have too many people at one time. And I was able to tap them for some volunteers. We decided to hold a multi-day, over a several-week period, collection
Mhm.
during the first weeks of the pandemic at St. David's Church. And in order to not expose too many outside people, I tapped on our own council people because we're doing this in person. And
Mhm.
Mike Stevens and Sonia Gowis and Linda Jeevas all came for several sessions and helped. Also, some of the church members came and helped us, a few other people from the community. I wound up having to turn away people because we wanted to very much limit exposure, only so many people inside at one time. We had a deal where people could stop at the curb, we'd run outside, we'd take the stuff in, so it was a contactless delivery. And we wound up collecting a huge amount of food. We packed it in bags and supplied it to the senior center, where Donna found people that needed the food, and it was distributed to a lot of individuals, plus a few group homes from, like, people were giving 20-pound bags of sugar. So we do have some group homes in West Windsor, so that was taken there. The governor announced that the township would be allowed to postpone property tax collections till the end of the month. Usually there's a grace period of up to 10 days.
Yeah.
And if you go further, you have to pay a penalty from the beginning of the month. And a lot of people were letting us know that they had either been laid off from their jobs, or their small businesses had to close down, and they were hurting, and they didn't have a way of getting that tax money so quickly because they didn't, this was totally unplanned. So at that point, I went to the mayor and I said, can we afford to do this? Because we would have to lay some of the money out. And then I also spoke to other council people and got their support. And we had to call a special council meeting in order to do this before May 1st. And we went ahead and we passed a resolution that allowed us to delay for just that month. We can't do it again.
Yeah.
This was a special event that allowed us to delay the tax collection for that month. And I think there was something like about 10% of the people in West Windsor elected to delay their tax, paying their tax for that month, their property tax, because hopefully they were the people who needed it, because I did ask them, if you can pay it, please pay it, because we're laying this out for other people. But we were able to do it, and the people who needed it, who needed that extra little time to pay their taxes, were able to get it. So I was happy we were able to do that. And another thing we did is that a number of groups, fire departments, the Mercer Mass Project, Sonia Gowis and I kept talking about how can we honor some of these groups during the pandemic. And the mayor and the council, everybody said, yeah, go do it, as long as as long as we were going to do the work. So and they said they would help out. And we really wanted an in-person event. We tried to talk about it several times. The health department said, no, that's not going to fly. Every time it looked possible, it just became too dangerous. And finally we said, all right, we're going to do an online event. And we put something together, and we identified the groups. We identified who to contact. We set up a system where they would contact us, and they would give us certain information. And we put together a weekly Hometown Heroes, which was an online type of event. And then we started that about the end of November. And then I wrote a proclamation making December 2020 the Hometown Heroes Month in West Windsor to further honor all of these groups. We got a bunch of the proclamations. Everybody on council and the mayor signed it. And the program was very popular. And we went to the different groups to give out the proclamation and thank them. And it kind of started off as, okay, I have all of these proclamations that everybody signed. I'm going to stop by and I'm going to drop it off. And it became, oh, well, I'm bringing this one in and that one in. Can we take a picture? And then it became, okay, well, if we're going to do that, let's have more people, more council people and the mayor and come and then it became this event. And it it wasn't intended like that. It wasn't supposed to be photo ops. It was just supposed to be, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
But I think everybody was just so hungry to be honored and to have these thank yous that it all kind of blossomed off into these events every week. And I'm happy we did it because in a lot of, not only did we get to meet the people, and we did do it under the rules. If it was 25 people, we had to limit it. I know Girl Scouts, they were saying, well, every one of these Girl Scouts represents another 50 Girl Scouts and things like that.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases, we were visiting like the fire departments and we were visiting a food bank and we were visiting other places that we wouldn't necessarily, that if they came into council and we just gave them something at council, we wouldn't have seen them in their home territory, wouldn't seen what they could do as much. I think that, so that it came out to be, hey, you're the hero, I'm coming to you, which I think was really important. And we got to learn a lot from it. So I was really happy with that. And we're finishing that up now. We keep thinking of maybe another thing to do. This past week, we sort of did a thank you for all essential workers, for anybody that may have been, whether they're supermarket or, for all the different groups that have been working quietly and have been doing things for us. Then our next concern, which we were waiting for this to sort of become a little more automatic once we had all the submissions, was for the small businesses in the town, all the businesses, but in particular small businesses. And there really wasn't one place where they were all listed. I know on some of the website groups, people would say, hey, are there any gyms open, or are there any, once they start opening up, or what restaurants are available, and people would kind of list it and that would kind of go off. And we didn't have a list anywhere in one place. So Sonia, Linda Jeevas and I set up to go and actually drive around the town, stop in at all of these places, see who was open. If we could do so safely, if it wasn't crowded, we would open the door and ask to speak to the proprietor, ask how things were going. In some of the cases, if it was a shop, we had some reusable bags that the town's been giving out as part of the Bring Your Own Bag program. So we would give the store some of these bags and say, hey, this is for customers, and talk to them. And then we made a list of all these all these stores. Basically, we took Google Maps and by hand put all the addresses and all the phone numbers and all the websites and contact. That's how I spend my evenings. So and made these, and we gave them to our town clerk and both Ross and Gay, the IT person, and we said, okay, this is how we'd like this list to look. We took a bunch of pictures. We took a picture of each of the places. We said we'd like the pictures in there. We would like the places. We want all this information. And they put it into the list form, and we now have a directory of all of these places online. And then we started getting some people saying, hey, I have a home-based business, so how can I get onto this too? So we now just put something up on the township website. If you have a home-based business, fill out a form, and we'll be putting up a separate list of West Windsor home-based businesses, so they can get a little shot in the arm from that. Other things in December, West Windsor finally settled the Howard Hughes property in a deal that makes sure we don't increase our residents and yet get a good commercial rateable.
Mm-hmm.
I know the mayor was instrumental in really working on that deal. And then it came into council, and we had to work on it a bit in council. The thing that makes it special to me is that well before I was on the council, one of the things I became particularly active in is in a group that helped prevent the large residential development that was originally proposed several years
Yeah.
ago. I don't know
Yeah.
if you remember that. And so I had gone around to people, written articles, given speeches, and spoke before the planning board before I was ever on the planning board, which I
Yeah.
got on the following year, trying to prevent that kind of massive development in West Windsor, because I did say I like the small town feel to it. So
Yeah.
I'm happy that we're now going to get something that I think will be a commercial rateable. I'll say that if I had my absolute choice of businesses that I think are going to go in there, this might not have been first choice. It's the best of all possible worlds. So I'm happy with that deal. Then in mid-September of my first year, Council President Manzari quit when she decided to move.
Yeah.
And I suddenly found myself council president in the middle of
Yeah.
the pandemic and in one of the worst areas in the world. So in terms of the pandemic. Then I quickly had to organize finding a new council person, because there's a statutory limit that you have by the state. You have to actually, within I think 30 days, you had to put somebody in if you want someone, and we didn't want to have a four-person council because that can be very messy. So what happened is the rules kept changing. One day you could have the meeting here, then 2 days before we went out to people, we found about 10 people were interested in the job. I personally interviewed just about all of them, as did some of the other council people. And then they kept changing up to like the last minute before we're holding this meeting, where we could hold it, how many people we could allow in, who we could tell could come in. We were getting things from the lawyers because the state kept changing the rules. And we finally had it all set up and done legally and properly, put the meeting together, and I think it went pretty well, and we wound up selecting Andrew Hirsch, who joined the council at the end of September. One thing I've done as president is, excuse me, I've tried to get the council involved at a lot of different levels. I added 2 new council liaisons, one to the Shade Tree Committee and one for the Human Relations Council, which had been kind of orphans before and had never had that kind of attention. I had attended some of the meetings the prior year, and they had shown an interest in having that when I brought it up. So we now have representatives. And then our budget meetings, I felt that for our budget meetings, we hadn't been having enough time for the council to really learn what's going on. So I set it up so that our budget meetings are now long enough so that we can get all our questions answered, because the budget's the primary responsibility of council. It's not all this other fun stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure we were as involved as possible. Then in January, I was elected council president during our regular reorganization. So I now have council president for the whole year. And we're now working on the 2021 budget. It's hard to believe it's been a whole year since we did the last one. And yesterday I ran a 6-hour budget meeting with just 2 10-minute breaks. I did get a couple complaints after. And that's just one of several meetings, budget meetings that are planned. I think there's like 4 plus some extras. And people don't realize a lot of the work that goes into being a council member, the prep work before we even hold these meetings, and that being present isn't just getting to sit there in front of the meeting with the gavel. Anyway, so that's sort of a summary of some of the things I've been working on.
Wow, that is the entire, there's 1 year. It doesn't look like it's for 1 year.
It feels like 10 years.
It is so exhaustive. I can understand that what all of you must have gone through, because you have to keep the momentum going also. So we have to take care of our family. Imagine, that's tough enough for us. Imagine you have to take care of not just your family, you have to take care of multiple different families. And
Yeah,
so
I have trouble when people say, oh, I've watched everything on Netflix, and if I get to watch TV twice a week, or I've cleaned my house top to bottom, and this is the cleanest room I think I have right now. So, so, so yeah, so I'm having trouble relating to the boredom part. I'll tell you
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, I know. But that's really nice, like, so March is Women's History Month, and until the last quarter of the 20th century, very few West Windsor Township representatives were women. Half a century later, this has completely changed.
Yeah, and
Well,
I'm sure we're not the only town that's true. I'm
okay, I
doing.
think you
Um,
glitched. I'm
you're
sorry.
frozen, by the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
repeat my question. Yeah. Um, okay. I'll repeat my question and then you can say, because I think I'll edit that part then,
okay.
that glitch part. So, March is Women's History Month, and until the last quarter of the 20th century, very few West Windsor Township representatives were women. And half a century later, this has completely changed.
That's true, and I think you could probably say that a lot about a number of towns. I look upon it from a relative unique perspective. I received my first degree in engineering in 1973. You can all figure out my age by now. And that's back when women were something like 1% of the engineers in the United States. So I've been the first or only woman many times in my life, especially in the early years. And sometimes it's been a fight. My first job in a major company, which I'm not going to name right now, I was told to make the coffee, go eat lunch with the secretaries, and wear a dress so people could see my legs. You don't go through engineering school and then put up with that really well. So it was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So I can sometimes be a bit sensitive when women aren't taken seriously or are relegated to some women's circle. And we're not just about 1 month, even though it is my birthday month.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I think we're about, the whole year, and we're part of things.
Yeah.
Things change, but not everybody changes. I've spent the last 25 years or so trying to encourage self-esteem in girls, not by talk, but by having them do accomplishments. I helped start and coach all-girl robotics teams, for instance, and we went to 3 world championships over 8 years. And I've run Girl Scout campouts, so the girls got dirty and they learned skills. And I've done knife training for groups of older girls with real knives. So now those girls get to see me as president of the council in their town. That's a good thing too. But these girls know they can do anything, and I don't think they think of themselves as, hey, the woman on council. When they get to council, they'll think of themselves as council person. I don't know if women in government are more likely to compromise or see consensus, as some people assume. I think I tend to do that now, but that's come more with age and experience. And I, I will heavily admit I was not always that way. um, and what I do know is at some point, if women hold enough power and enough numbers, they just will have to be respected as equal. And it was one point, I think West Windsor had 5 women on the council, and we also had a woman mayor. So I think we've gone beyond seat at the table or occasional role model, but we're here as a real part of the government. And I'm hoping that the voters look beyond male, female, or any type of sexual
Yeah.
orientation and just see and will see us and vote for us as a whole person.
Yeah.
And, and that's no longer a reason to vote for or against anybody. I think they have to look at what we've done and what they think we can do. And that's my hope for the future.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree that, we have come very far from what you must have dealt with or what I must have dealt with. We have really come far, but we have a still a long way to go. But I'm very happy that girls are seeing beyond what they have been like, seeing in the past. They are moving forward. They are not like, girls anymore. They are like, a person, like,
Uh,
they are, yeah, they are talking about themselves, and like, so it is something that is commendable. And definitely, like, all of you make a lot of difference in making sure that the girls are looking at, I know role model is not a right word, but still, sometimes it's important to have some role models in life, and that makes a benchmark kind of a thing. Oh, like, this person can do, even I can do. So, yeah, it's really nice. So, coming back to our township, so like, the past year, as we had been,
you're breaking up again.
okay, all right.
You just glitched. So if you want to start.
Okay, I'll start now.
Yeah.
So, coming back to the council again. So, the past year has been very unique as we have been talking, right? So, and you have been talking a lot about the behind the scenes, but is there anything that you'd like the general public to know about the level of coordination that goes into the municipal response to the pandemic? And do you want to name any township initiatives that stand out to you in particular?
Well, I think right from the beginning, back a year ago in March, when this whole thing started, the mayor decided West Windsor was going to keep the town operations going despite COVID. And this is not every town that did this. It's not the county government; they're still shut down in places. State government, there's still things that aren't. And it's a year later. A lot of the towns. A lot of the towns did not do this full performance, but we decided as much as possible we were going to provide everything, the services. The building was closed to the public, safety precautions were instituted, but the operations continued and many staff continued to work in person. You could get permits. Somebody called me and say, hey, I need a marriage license. I said, yes, we're doing that. I checked, yes, we're doing everything. You can get
Yeah.
married, divorce is on you, but get married, we can and the council also decided to not only continue to meet in person, but to not give up any of our responsibilities. Many governing bodies, including the state legislature, took a back seat for many months. I think they still are. We kept going, actively working on the budget last year, as we are now. We became concerned about the residents' abilities to pay taxes, and we spent many hours trimming the budget, arguing different people, holding back spending as much as possible without cutting the services. And we wound up with municipal budget cuts for 2020 and a flat municipal tax because we were just so concerned with everything that we saw going around. And we didn't want to put ourselves in a worse position if it turned out we weren't going to get revenues, which by the way, we've done pretty well with now. But at that point, we were very concerned and we wanted to be prepared. In our form of government, the mayor has executive function, which means that the staff, including public safety and health, report to him. However, the council is the Board of Health, and we felt very strongly we should be part of the loop during the crisis. There was a West Windsor public safety team that met several times a week to go in person over the crisis response and the status. And so Virginia, the council president, and I began insisting that 2 council members be allowed at each of these meetings, and we would take turns to know what was planned and to report to the emergency team what was happening with residents. And this was the full council felt this was very important. Everyone felt we should be there as a sort of a voice of the people, representative of the people. And after a bit of lively discussion with administration, we were finally included at these meetings, and that didn't take long. This was by late March, after maybe a week or 2 after the meetings had started. Now, one thing we saw at the meetings was how well organized and in control our West Windsor team was. I really wasn't sure what to expect, the small town flavor. People, worst cases, maybe somebody, prowler here or there, or some homeless. You don't look upon, nobody thinks of, a worldwide crisis and this being the epicenter
Yeah.
as something we plan on doing every day.
Yeah.
And so I really didn't know what to expect. And what we all saw gave us such tremendous confidence. They were on top of things like gathering PPE, emergency resources, and they were making sure fire, police, and emergency services were available at all times, with no matter what happened.
Yeah.
Making sure there were backups to backups, making sure that if somebody had a problem, they were there to help them. At that point, I wrote a letter for the whole council, praising and thanking the staff because I and council really believed that they were exceptional in terms of what they were able to do with we have a limited staff, a limited size of police, a limited EMS. We have
Yeah.
volunteer fire, and yet what we saw was complete professionalism.
Yeah.
So we wanted to assure everybody that everything was in as much control as it's going to be anywhere.
Yeah.
The biggest standout township initiative came when the vaccine was approved. Unlike in most counties, Mercer County left the initial rollout of the vaccine to municipal health officers and not to the county organization. And the municipal health officers have an association, and they got together to plan things out. Our health officer, Jill Swanson, who, by the way, is also, she works for us, but she is also the health officer for Robbinsville and for Hightstown.
Okay.
Did an amazing job setting up a vaccine site and getting an early vaccine clinic going for the first responders the first week in January. It went incredibly smooth because we decided to go at the end of the first one and go in and present them with their hometown heroes. It happened by one of these wonderful happenstances that the week we made them the hometown heroes was the first vaccine in West Windsor. And that was just so, I don't believe in coincidences. So I had to, I had to say, okay,
Amazing.
let's go in and let's thank everybody who's there at that.
Yeah.
After you finish, we went in for like the police chief's shot or something so we could take a picture of but which was great fun. But we were just so impressed. It was just moving so slow. It was the first one. People were moving along from here to there to everything. It was amazing, incredibly smooth. And then later, when the state decided to take the vaccine away from local control, don't ask me why, Mayor Marathi stood out in a fight to obtain vaccines. He tried to get as many for our residents. I know he was working night and day with phone calls, constantly trying to see what he can do. If we're not going to do it, then can we make sure that at least some of the residents on our list can get them locally? And so our senior, our 80-year-olds aren't traveling down to Atlantic City or something like that, because that happens to be a site that has it. So he did as much as possible, given that there's one mayor out of 500 something mayors and there's a whole state, and so he was constantly fighting for this. And I still hope we're able to return to vaccinating at least some of our most vulnerable residents now that there's more vaccine available. Perhaps they'll give us some again, so they can have a safe environment where we do it in our senior center and we have control. And so I'm glad he's still working on helping that way. But just to see what they were able to put together in a short period of time. And, I think if we had run what's happening in the state, we would be in a much better position. When I look at how organized we were, and I look at everybody yelling, where do I go and how do I sign up now? And it's night and day. So I'm really proud of our town and
Oh, yes.
and what we've done with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even I'm proud because as a resident and as a part of the community, and I feel so safe when I was in West Windsor. Like for this past 1 year, I had no fear, like, listening to the horrifying stories in other towns. And so I used to, like, tell my parents, they are back in India, they were like concerned about me. I'm like, no, don't worry, I'm in West Windsor. And best part is, Mayor used to inform us of the numbers. So we were like so well informed about what's happening. So there was, like, so I am very proud of the town in itself.
And I really want to thank the people in the town
Yeah,
because I saw how I see how generous they are. When we were collecting the food, uh, other collections, there were some money collections to buy gift cards,
yeah,
and I know now they're doing the 5,000 family collection where people are giving money to help the restaurants, and then families in Trenton are being. So we have a very generous town, and during COVID. If you would walk around the park, I'm sorry, the parks were all the parks were open, and people would walk, and people still do. If you're walking on a path, people will walk a few feet off,
yeah,
and it's like, even if you go to Mercer County Park, it's a whole different thing. People will walk six abreast, and
yeah,
unless you want to go into the woods, you're going to be right on top of them. I think people have shown a lot of respect to each other, and they wear masks when they go into the stores. There's not a lot of issues.
yeah. You can take the call.
And so sorry, you can block some of that out, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, no
So
worries.
I've just been so happy with the way people have done that kind of respect, and all the giving and the mask projects, and all the volunteers, um, and just everyday people with the way they've coped with all of this and
Yeah,
helped each other out. So it's just been amazing. I've hardly left West Windsor since I think the furthest I've driven since this whole thing started is I took part rescuing a couple of vulture chicks, and I drove them up to the I drove them up to the rescue off of Route 29. And I
oh,
think I checked Google Maps, and that's the furthest I've personally been since this started.
yeah,
Um, so but it's such a different level than a lot of other places.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And so I want to thank everybody in town, and the people who have kept things open, and the people who have made every attempt to continue services and things like that.
yeah, yeah, true.
But
So I would ask you about the Girl Scout. So what about the involvement of Girl Scout in the COVID relief efforts, and any other group that you want to shout out to?
um, yeah, I think I mentioned that the Girl Scouts had been involved in the mask project,
Mm-hmm.
and they had also done some food collections,
Yeah.
um, and they had also gone and they've taught other groups. Like they would set up Zoom calls, and they would teach groups both in town, and they would hold projects, and they would hold badge workshops for each other, to keep everybody active. But some of them also did things like STEM, science, technology,
Yeah.
engineering, and math, for people in underserved areas, because people in other areas don't necessarily have all the educational opportunities, and it's been particularly hard during COVID, for people who have less, or people whose parents have to be out more and can't help them with the at-home schooling, to get some of this enrichment. And some of our girls have been doing projects to try to help in that respect.
Yeah.
So some of the projects have been for us, but they do a lot of these projects for outside. And as far as the other groups, I'd have to go through the whole hometown heroes list, all of the fire
Yeah.
departments, all of the health departments, part of the town, but also A number of the groups I know you've interviewed, like Shoops and Hunger Packing, the Jewish Family Services that have continued to operate and not only not only does there pickup for food, but they have 2 vans that drop off food, and have been part of the schools that have been giving the lunches, the Board of Ed that's been doing things with feeding people in addition to the schooling that's been done. So there's been a huge, the post office that's been delivering the mail for all this. The Public Works we just honored. Public Works got hit with so much this past year. There were huge storms, there were power outages, there were trees down all over the place. 2020 was the year of the jackpot. And that's in addition to then we got hit with all these snowstorms after February 1st. So there's just been so much that everybody's been doing, and part of it has been it's their jobs, but they have going above and beyond in incredible conditions. It's they said, oh, the best, the thing you're doing is sitting on your couch. Well, all these groups, they weren't sitting on the couch. They were the ones keeping us with lights on and being able to travel on our roads and go to our parks and have food to eat and water coming out of the tap. All these groups allowed other people to essentially sit out on our couch and do some of this.
Yeah, and as you have said rightly, gratitude is something that we will all have for the hometown heroes. Because if they wouldn't have been there, the way we are sitting and relaxing, we wouldn't have been the way it is. So, salute to all of you and all of those hometown heroes. That's the biggest thing that all of you started, actually, honoring those people who really needed that honor, because they did a commendable job in.
And we still hope to have some big party in the town or whatever,
Oh,
like a community day type event, and I'm still hoping we can ask them to come up in front of everybody and get a public thank you again. But we weren't going to wait for it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I know. So thank you so much, Andrea, for
Thanks for having me.
your time. And we'll be meeting soon. I hope so.
Yep. I'm looking forward to it. I've missing all these holidays. I've been learning, including all the new holidays I've enjoyed. The year before, 2019, Holy and all of these. I mean, all of these fun holidays. So I'm looking forward.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.